Hello YouTube and welcome to an all new Elder Scrolls lore video. Today we're talking about Cherim, one of Elswere's most famous tapestry makers and arguably the most famous Khajiit of his time. This video was requested by YouTube user Violet Bunny, who kept bothering me about this subject even as I was working on the very video. And to that I say, an Imperial knowledge video is never late, but comes exactly when I mean to. With that said, let's get into the lore. So, Cherim. Cherim was a Khajiit living in the city of Orcrest in Elsewhere around the end of the Third Era. We don't know whether he was still alive during the events of Morrowind and Oblivion, but we can assume that he still was, as he was a young soldier during the 5-year war between Valenwood and Elsewhere, where he fought in several battles, which was around 30 to 40 years before the events of Oblivion and Morrowind. So, needless to say, the tapestries that I show in this video, which are from the Elder Scrolls Online, are from the Second Era and are thus not Cherim's work, but I need some background footage. Just like if you see any Khajiit in this video, it's not him, as we don't know what he looked like. But it's just an example. That said, Cherim got his fame after that war, the 5-year war. Presumably when the war was over, he settled down in the city of Orcrest, where he started to design elaborate tapestries with artwork on them. In this early period of his work, Cherim worked on tapestries depicting contemporary history. It's said that one of his first tapestries was a tapestry depicting the Battle of the Heart of Anaquina, the turning point in the 5-year war, where the Khajiit, according to Cherim, got the upper hand in the war. He himself had taken part in that battle, and on the tapestry he had depicted the armies taking part in the battle, even embroidering a picture of himself in the tapestry where he was looting the corpse of one of his Bosmer enemies. That tapestry, the Heart of Anaquina, was one of his first tapestries, which launched him into fame and where people recognized his talent with craft. His speciality, according to the lore that we have, was his color use, which was said to consist of muted background colors and luminous colors used for the skin tones of characters on the tapestries. It seems that his talent was so great and his tapestries he made were so beautiful that he quickly became very famous all around Tamriel, with his tapestries selling for higher and higher prices as time progressed. And it seems that someday there came a point where he himself was unable to keep up with the demand for his work, and so he opened several weaving factories in different places around Elsewhere to help make replicas of his work to be sold all around the Empire. This was arguably a good decision, so as from what we hear he became very rich of this business, with replica tapestries selling very well across the continent. But the fact that there were readily available replicas did not stop the demand for tapestries being made by the artist himself. Those made by the hands of Cherim himself sold for exorbitant amounts, with the Imperial government owning several, and 10 of them, several years before the events of Oblivion, reportedly being in the Emperor Uriel Septim VII's hands, with negotiations going on to obtain 5 additional ones from the artist himself for the Emperor's collection. Cherim had at this point truly become a Tamrielic celebrity, with his name famous all across the Empire, and at the time of his life, he was probably at this point the most famous Khajiit around the continent. At the very apex of his fame, Cherim had changed his work from depicting contemporary events like battles of recent wars to important historical and metaphysical events. We know of works of his depicting the creation of the world by the gods, the exodus of the prophet Veleth and his followers from the Somerset Isles, which led eventually to the Dark Elf Society. He also made a tapestry of the Aelids fighting the legendary Moriahas at the White Gold Tower, and according to one out-of-game source, he made a tapestry, currently in possession of the Imperial government, which depicts a moth priest on top of the White Gold Tower as a dragon circles the tower, with some in the community speculating that this may depict a metaphysical scene taking place during the Middle Dawn or at the beginning of it, with the Middle Dawn being the longest known dragon break in Tamriel's history. But that's just speculation based on an out-of-game unlicensed text by ex-Elder Scrolls Online writer Douglas Goodall, so take that with a grain of salt, as it is out-of-game. But that same text states, however, that Cherim's tapestries evoked a sense of significant form, a real-world aesthetic theory which states that for something to be art, it needs to evoke emotion in its viewer, and even if it's not necessarily beautiful in a conventional way. This could make sense and provide an explanation as to why the people of Tamriel were so drawn to Cherim's work, But again, this came from an unlicensed text, so it may be contradicted at some point, but still, I like the explanation for his fame, and I like the explanation that that's why his tapestries were so beautiful and were so coveted around Tamriel. With that being said, that's basically all that we know about the famous tapestry artist, Cherim. Quite an interesting character, and I really wish we could see one of his actual tapestries. This fresco depicting some concept art of Veleth and his exiles may be one of his tapestries, but considering he was famous for color use, I don't really think it is, since it has, I don't know, it's very faded and it's, called a fresco in the concept art, so I don't really think it's a tapestry, but it might resemble some of his tapestries. On the other hand, I think that considering his legendary status, we'd best never really see one of his tapestries, so they can continue to speak to our imagination. Considering their mythical status, I think that whatever texture either Bethesda or one of their other studios comes up with for a tapestry could be underwhelming, maybe. Anyway, that doesn't really stop my curiosity to see them. But that's basically all I can say about Cherim. Thanks to Violet Bunny for requesting the topic, and then Shame for being so impatient. Just kidding. Anyway, I hope you learned something, but before I end this video, allow me to say that I hope to see you again in the next Elder Scrolls Lore video if you enjoyed this one, and allow me to thank my top Patreon supporters, Mr. Bernardo Binda, Gabriel Binda, Polarized Poutine, Athena Hyotis, King Chris, Scribe of the Scrolls, Doji, Fenrir, Sword of Bushido, Saw Mikal, and Mr. Christmas. It is thanks to these people and all the others you see on the screen that this channel stays alive, and for that, I am very grateful. That said, I hope to see you all in the next Elder Scrolls Lore video. Bye bye.